The cases that I chose to examine for this assignment are sexual misconduct cases in Ontario, where the perpetrator pled guilty to their charges. Both are teachers who were, at the time, registered by the Ontario College of Teachers, and both were still teaching at the time that the accusations began. The most significant difference between the two cases, however, are the fact that one of the teachers is male and the other is female. The reason that I wanted to research the topic of sexual misconduct was simply because I had already had a case in mind that I was already interested in learning about. The case of Jacqueline McLaren is extremely current. In fact, I just read about it prior to beginning this assignment, as an article of her trial was coming to a close and was just shared on Facebook by one of my friends who happened to know her family personally. The headline of the Toronto Star article I saw read that a Belleville teacher would be serving 2 years in prison for sexual exploitation, luring, possession of child pornography. After opening the article, I learned that 8 of her victims were under the age of 18, 4 were under 16, and 6 out of 8 of them were allegations coming from her students. What? 2 years? As I read, I learned the dirty details. She sent pictures of her genitals and breasts to her grade 8 students via Snapchat. Okay, so this is starting to get a little close to home. Who doesn't have Snapchat these days? Ugh. Sit tight. I'll come back to this. She met some of the boys outside of school for beers, presumably providing them with the beers, fondled them, whatever that actually means, and received and gave oral sex and even slept with one of them. Again, she pled guilty. This got me thinking, though. If this were a male teacher, there's no way he would have got off with only 2 years in prison. Is there a double standard here? Depending on which of the students she engaged in physical active sex with, this was bordering on statutory rape, was it not? So this case got me really interested in the double standard that I thought was likely out there. I was out to try to prove that this were a man, he would have had the hammer thrown at him much harder. So I ran my Google searches, and while I got a lot of hits for Ontario teacher sexual misconduct, surprisingly, the majority of them were were female teachers. Especially the more recent ones, let's say in the last 2-3 years. So I searched high and low to find a case that seemed like a fair male comparison to Jacqueline McLaren's case, and I came across Johannes Albert Heller, a teacher from Woodstock. Oh, Johannes. This less than lovely feller pled guilty back in 2010 for touching a young male under the age of 16, that's what it read at least, making child pornography, inviting a young person to touch his body for sexual purpose, and committing sexual assault. All kind of legal terminology didn't really give me the nitty and gritty. But I now know that no two cases are the same. Like Jacqueline McLean, Mr. Heller engaged in sexual activity with a minor under the age of 16, was in possession of child pornography, and both covered it all up. I believe they called that obstruction of justice. But here's the kicker. Johannes Heller got 6 years in prison. Granted, it sounds like he had a part in making the pornography, but also Jacqueline solicited child porn from her victims by asking for nudies. The details I was able to find on Cambly, again, were a little less descriptive than what actually, I think, transpired, or at least articles would give me. But it sounds like the production of kiddie porn might have sealed his fate. Either way, both teachers had their teaching licenses revoked by OCT under the Ontario Laws of Education Act, and spent some, or are spending time behind bars. But that doesn't make things a little less gross. I wanted to be able to prove that male teachers were legally disadvantaged when it comes to sexual misconduct cases against them. While I still believe that to be true, I couldn't actually prove anything because, again, no two cases are the same. Just because I can't prove it, though, it doesn't mean that there isn't evidence to support my thesis. But again, that's not the point. My point in reviewing and comparing these cases is not to try to prove that as a teacher, I'll be advantaged should I ever see myself being accused of sexual misconduct simply because I'm a woman. That would be a questionable motive to research. A topic like this, considering I am trying to become a teacher. It's more so the graphic that I read in the first article about McLaren. She sent the dirties through Snapchat. Ick. When I was doing research for this video, I came across Tara Matuson. She's an education student at Western who wrote her thesis titled Ontario College of Teachers, Cases of Sexual Teacher Misconduct. In it, she quoted Sullivan and Beach, who, in their study, found that 90% of the professional perpetrators in her study were aware about their sexual preference for children before entering the profession. The truth is, It's likely at a point in my career, I'll come across someone who works with children and is like-minded as the individuals that I talked about in this video. Almost all the people I know, teachers, EAs, nurses, lawyers, servers, bank tellers, cleaners, dental hygienists, all of them, they almost all have social media. This might be a little bit presumptuous, but it's alarming to find out that 90% of those perpetrators that we scoff about when we read the blue pages of Professionally Speaking might be thinking about something illegal when they sign up for Snapchat, Facebook, and Instagram. These two cases are cautionary tales for any person with a smartphone entering a profession that come in contact with children. And I guess that's my point. Whether or not you're a sicko, you need to be careful. Because these people are out there. And they're not always the ones that you would cast type as a criminal.